Albertse. And together with Andy Sill, who is in this session, we are the directors of Paladin Consulting, a paid-for business partner of the BPESA Future Skills platform. Now, our core business focus is management consulting within the GBS sector. We have been deeply involved in corporate education and more recently in impact sourcing and work readiness for excluded youth. In November 2022, Paladin published a research report which was commissioned by BPESA, that's Business Unity South Africa, and was funded by the NSF, the National Skills Fund. And this research focused on work readiness and employability for young graduates and displaced workers. This year, we decided to start a new initiative in our own business, leveraging our knowledge, expertise, experience in consulting and research to mobilize a work integrated learning hub for unemployed youth in and around Dundee. And for those of you who are not aware of where Dundee is, it's a very small little town located in northern KwaZulu-Natal. All right, so let's unpack what is on the agenda for today's session. I'm not going to be presenting any PowerPoint overview. I'm going to talk through the agenda items, and once we're done, we're going to transition across to a live view on the Future Skills platform. We're going to talk about an overview of what the Dundee Digital Skills Hub is. We're going to talk about, very importantly, the objectives for using the BPESA Future Skills platform. We're going to do an overview of the work readiness program design. And this is important because it provides the context as we unpack the core purpose for this session, which is showcasing the Future Skills platform's ability to create an integrated content experience design. And then we're going to a lesser extent, touch on privacy, protected content and IP, front-end quick view analytics, as we call it, and some strengths, lessons learned, and opportunities for moving forward. Before I unpack a little bit more about the Dundee Digital Skills Hub, just wanted to make a note that our operations manager, Thandeka Shabalala, is on the call with us today. Thandeka, thank you so much for joining us. So in the session, if anybody's got any questions, if there are any comments, please feel free to use the chat functionality with Thandeka on the call and Andy on the call. Either of them can respond or engage with questions and commentary. Right, so what is the Dundee Digital Skills Hub? The Dundee Digital Skills Hub marked the formal mobilization of the BPO sector development plan for Tier 2 and Tier 3 locations in KwaZulu-Natal. The project is co-funded by the Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, together with Paladin Consulting. The Dundee Digital Skills Hub is a work-integrated learning model, which is designed to bridge critical gaps in behaviors and professional attributes for work, while pathwaying young excluded talent into real working experiences, creating a springboard into first-time employment or meaningful and gainful employment. The first 12 months of the project will be used to establish a proof of concept for work-integrated learning models for KZN Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns and communities for BPO, with a focus on digital and digitally enabled jobs. To give you an idea of the scale of the project, it is a very small scale project with an objective to source and train 14 unemployed youth in work readiness training for approximately 3 months, and thereafter place 10 of those candidates into what we call work integrated learning for an approximate 9-month period, and thereafter exiting those candidates into more permanent employment opportunities with a focus on retaining the work in Dundee via a work from home or remote model, and that's to further stimulate local economic growth and change. To date, we're very excited to say that the success of the project so far has been such that we've been able to exceed the target of placing 10 of our candidates into work integrated learning. In fact, we are in the process of transitioning all 14 of our candidates into work integrated learning. So let's talk about the objectives for using the BPESA Future Skills platform. For Paladin and the Dundee Digital Skills Hub, as mentioned, our background has been largely focused in management consulting. To date, we have developed one formal qualification, which is a generic management qualification accredited with the bank CETA. However, this is not content which is entirely suited to supporting a new cohort of individuals or excluded youth in and around tier 2, tier 3, with a purpose of transitioning young excluded talent into work integrated models with a focus on digitally outsourced services. So for the Dundee Digital Skills Hub, one of our most important objectives was the ability to access high quality work readiness training to support foundational close the gap. We also wanted to access high quality upskilling content to support broader whole person development. And we wanted to, over and above the core content, curate an additional content for bespoke on-the-go requirements. And this typically arose around digital work readiness, digital literacy, cloud technology, and customer service. We furthermore wanted the power and the ability to create new content quickly and efficiently. And very importantly, we wanted to create a unified learning experience by structuring multiple training streams into one consolidated group environment. And I think many of us in this session today are well aware of the abundance of high quality content and information on the open web. The ability to fetch, curate, and structure that content into well thought out learning design is the key for an effective learning experience. We also wanted to make the learning accessible anytime, any place, so that our candidates over and above the prescribed structure could support their own continuous learning as well as refresher training. And this is something that we observed in the first few months is the candidates, as they build their confidence, their knowledge, and their expertise, it's offered a great security net for candidates within their own time and their own pace to reflect back on historical content to close any gaps. We sought out to leverage the platform not only as a repository for learning content, but to also publish useful links and resources into easily recognizable learning categories. We wanted to stimulate peer competitiveness by leveraging the group leaderboard functionality. And finally, we're on a tight plan. So it was really important for us that we could create the learning assignments, leverage push notifications, and support the learning program plan and the critical timelines. All right, so from there, I am going to shift over onto the live view to give a breakdown of the program design. I'm going to start by taking you through the program design so that you can get a feel for what the learning requirements were for the first 3 months of the hub. From there, we're going to transition into the group on the Future Skills platform, and we're going to talk about how we structured the content and, very importantly, all of the different content types and how we stitch this into a unified learning experience. So just give me one moment. I am going to do I'm trying to look for a full screen share. It doesn't seem that it will allow that for now. So I'm going to go singular screen and toggle. All right, you should be able to see my screen. You'll see in the front of our learning plan, we had 3 major tracks. We called this the Future Skills Work Readiness Program. We've got a Biomastery program And we're thrilled to have Barbara Parker in on the session today. Barbara Parker is in fact the founder of the Biomastery for Business program. It is a program designed to address stress management and to develop resilience, and it has been the most impactful program that we have implemented to date. And the third and final most important piece to this program design for this cohort is that we're training Salesforce administrators. So this is a third track of learning that we needed to integrate into this complete experience. So this gives you an idea, top to bottom, of the different types of content that we knew we needed to solve. We knew we needed to address behaviors for work. We needed to address digital literacy, getting comfortable with Microsoft Office Suite, developing English language communication skills, but also listening and typing. Task management, goals and priorities was critical. But more modern components, understanding big data, how to handle information and unstructured data, understanding what cybersecurity is now that our candidates had become digital citizens themselves, understanding artificial intelligence and the impact on business today, and very importantly, how to use data to tell stories. We also knew that we needed to embed a healthy mindset around continuous learning and transferable skills, as we know that the pathway to employment is not quite as linear as we'd like it to be. So that gives you an overview of the program design that we wanted to incorporate, but had absolutely no content, or shall I say very little content to get started. And then, of course, we had to stitch in the Biomastery program. Now, interestingly, most of the content is hosted on a Biomastery platform, but the pieces that fell outside of the platform was accessing the recordings. So we would have live sessions that were recorded, and this was the overview or an introduction of a new set of lessons. And then after that, we would have these interactive tutorial sessions in which the candidates get to unpack together with Barbara, who facilitated these sessions, core concepts, and to deliberate what makes sense, what doesn't, and how do we apply this. And then in the Pathfinder program, we had 2 blocks of learning that we had to stitch in. We had a primary block called our pre-program 6-week block. And this was predominantly curated content available on the Trailhead platform. And then we had our Pathfinder program, which is more integrated experience of theoretical learning, practical learning on virtual labs hosted in Trailhead, interactive training sessions, and one-on-one mentorship sessions. All right, so we built out a fabulous comprehensive learning plan, but from this wonderful plan, we had to get something into action. So I'm going to stop and reshare my screen, and we're going to shoot across to the Future Skills view. Welcome to the Dundee Digital Skills Hub home on the Future Skills platform. So now we can talk about how we took all of the learning requirements. So once we understood exactly what it was that we needed to cover and address in our first 3 months of learning, we were able to collaborate with the Future Skills team to put together this integrated experience. So I'm going to take you through some of the structures and the content, and we're going to talk about where the content has come from, how we've curated it in, and this is really to create an awareness about the platform's curation abilities as well as creation abilities. I'm going to start off with the Work Readiness channel. So we created a space where we would host all of our curated work readiness content. Now we're working with excluded youth from excluded communities that are very South African, and westernized content is not always the easiest to land. So it was really important for us that we could access core content for work readiness that had a local context that was relatable. So from the Future Skills platform, we were able to leverage 4 core modules, which are provided by SA Youth. They're also hosted locally on the Future Skills platform, meaning that we can easily curate this content and add this into our group structure. I'm going to go into behaviors for work to give you a view of what this content entails. So in this example, and I've got to move my screen around. In this example, you'll see we have got a journey structure, which is all of these categories or units of learning. And within each journey, we've got curated smart cards. And this specific content created by SA Youth is packaged as SCORM file assets. And these assets are hosted, as mentioned, in this LXP environment, Learning Experience Platform environment. And so this is the content that we made available to our candidates. And they were able to undertake behaviors for work, socialization for work, and English communication within their first week of studies.
I lived with my grandmother before my father remarried, and I had to go back and live.
I think the idea that I'd like to get across is that it's localized content, it resonated well with the candidates, and it was put together and made available in the group in a matter of a few days. There we already had the core components of our work readiness training. Okay, so the behaviors for work, together with the other SA Youth assets, is just an example of what was already available in the Future Skills platform, where it's a content partner that is based on a freemium model and provides this openly usable content. Over and above the SA Youth content, we also wanted to curate in additional content to plug some gaps. So interestingly, what we noticed through the early phase of the hub, so within the first month, we got a pretty good idea of English language capabilities. There's a lot of content on how to communicate, a lot of content on how to write, and business etiquette and email writing. But we didn't have content readily available to develop listening abilities as well as how to capture information accurately. So listening and typing skills. So what we did was we curated in some open source podcasts that came directly from BBC. And we created this within our own team as what we call project cards. And this allows the candidates to submit. So the exercise was as follows. We play a podcast. The candidates listen to the podcast first time. Second time, they transcribe what they are hearing onto a Word document. They save the Word document and they submit it via the smart card. That then gets peer graded. We had too many of these exercises for the team to constantly review and grade. So we introduced a peer grading system. So the candidates worked on a 100% basis and subtracted for each mistake. So this is a good example of how our team, over and above what was provided to us once we had identified from the content catalog, over and above that, what we curated in a very agile manner to close a critical gap. And we continued this exercise for a 2-month period with the candidates, and the results and the change in accuracy was quite incredible. I'm going to just shoot back into Work Readiness content view to give you a view of the typing tests and how we managed to support this on the platform. Again, this is just another example of leveraging open source platforms to stitch this into a learning program. The candidates would undertake a typing test. Once they complete the typing test, they would get a breakdown of their words per minute. They would get their words per minute, their error rate, and the time that it took them to complete the typing test. And once they completed that, they can capture the score. And this is where extended functionality of the LXP, and in this case, it's called My Guide, allows the candidates to capture in that information. I just want to take you through that view. When was the test taken? This is just a means by which we would track their speed over a period of time. I'm going to give myself a decent 80 words per minute and quite confident that my error rate was 0.5%. Usually is, not always. And this would then be submitted, and we would analyze the results, and we would map that into Excel, and we would track the performance of our candidates over time and watch these beautiful exponential graphs as the candidates went from very slow typing speeds and big error rates to relatively fast typing speeds and far reduced error rates. So again, just another example of stitching in openly available tools and making it easily accessible to the candidates. Let's shift across to the digital work readiness component. In the digital work readiness module, when I took you through the program design, we'd spoken about some of the areas that we as a business, through research, through consulting, knew were important to plug, but didn't have the content to support. At a very basic level, we wanted to cover training on Microsoft Office. So this is a good example of how we leveraged content that is already available on Microsoft Learn to get the candidates up and running on Outlook. So we pull in, embed what we call a deep link into a smart card. It's a simple, quick process. The candidates launch the content, and they're on the right learning page. We haven't hosted the content. We haven't migrated any content. It remains exactly where it is. But what we have done is we've created an easy, accessible link in a logical place within the learning journey. So again, back to the commentary that we know there is an incredible amount of content, information, training materials, but how do we pull this all in? And how do we curate this into a meaningful, logical learning experience? So we stitched together a few basic modules to cover Outlook, introduction, Word, and managing tasks in Microsoft. Task management was a huge one that we had to deal with over and over. Let's switch across to creating personal brands and leveraging modern platforms such as LinkedIn. And here's another example of how we pulled in a lesson directly from LinkedIn Learning. And again, third-party site hosted, not supported by an integration. We're just simply curating in the content to make it easily accessible, and off the candidates go to complete their overview on LinkedIn Learning. We followed this with a credible YouTube content creator and supplemented with these two videos on creating a great LinkedIn.
Forget about Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. LinkedIn is where the money is.
LinkedIn is where the money is. All right, so this is just an example of how those YouTube videos can be directly embedded into the platform, or alternatively, the candidates could watch it directly on YouTube. If there are any questions about security and firewalls, please feel free to just drop that into chat. It is an area that we do cover and we do discuss. But just for the sake of focusing on how we create unified learning experiences, we're not necessarily addressing that in today's session. All right. We spoke about the additional areas in cybersecurity, AI, basics of data science, data visualization. And so to solve for these requirements, we then pulled in and curated content, which is licensed IP content created by NASSCOM in collaboration with EDCAST. So NASSCOM is the industry body for IT, ITES in India. And there is an extensive library of over 600 badged pathways. And this is where it has been created by an industry expert in India, a part of the NASSCOM ecosystem, created, approved, and badged. Now, this content is available to all partners and users of Future Skills. So let's take a look. For us, it was really important to get the candidates cybersecurity aware. We took candidates that have little to no digital literacy or experience to working only on a laptop on the web, using SaaS and their desktop applications. And security for us as a company, as well as for external clients that we serve, is a top priority. But again, we did not necessarily have the content to plug this gap. So the NASCOM badged pathway on Introduction to Cybersecurity Awareness provided a fabulous primer for our candidates and covered basic concepts such as what are cyber attacks, what is malware, what are DDoS attacks, what is phishing, and that was interspersed with quick reviews, quizzes, and polls on how the content is engaged. We also, over and above the cybersecurity, pulled in content that was available on data science and visualization, as well as artificial intelligence. And again, creating basic foundations of knowledge for our candidates to understand these concepts as they would become highly relevant in their pathways as they transitioned into work integrated learning. So again, all of this content available right from the Explore library. And this is all of the NASCOM content, and that's collected into emerging technologies and professional skills. All right, so I'm going to navigate back into the group view. Just give me one moment. Now we've spoken about curating content from external sources. We've spoken about curating content from internally hosted and available content on the LXP. And now we're going to dig into BPESA created content as well as Dundee Hub created content. So let's move over to two pathways: importance of continuous learning and transferable skills. These pathways are openly available pathways, but were created by Judy Robson. And these include incredible content, which helped us to create a very healthy learning mentality, understanding, and appreciation for the role of not just prescribed learning, but ongoing self-development, professional development. And all of this content was available. We sat with our learning requirements and were quickly advised by the team on what would be suitable to curate into this mix and journey. Transferable skills, another beautiful example of content. And in this case, it's an example of slightly more formal content, although it is not accredited, it's not formally accredited. We do support this with pre and post assessments. And here we're able to leverage the assessment platform capability, which is the Metal assessment platform. It is a different application, but a fantastic, robust tool. You'll see it takes you through a series of checks. You have to check for system compatibility. It checks connectivity whilst it's running through system compatibility. I'm just going to pop in my details so that we can give you a view of the test. Sorry, I need to move my Zoom screen around. Let's submit and let's get started. All right. Transferable skills are the valuable skills you learn doing one job that you can bring to a new job, true or false. So this Metal assessment platform is incredible, highly configurable, a wealthy bank of questions, assessment types, forms, etc. I think what's also really fantastic about the Metal assessment platform is the feedback and information that the candidates get. So they can attempt, they can mark and revisit, they can have a view of what they have not yet completed, and they can resume. Let's finish that off. Unfortunately, I won't be a top scorer. And the pre and post assessment functionality for us was really important, with this being a co-funded project, a part of our evidencing back to our funder, includes critical assessment reports as well as evidence of actual learning. The pre and post assessments for us were important at certain times in the learning journey to demonstrate change and improvement in newly acquired knowledge and skills. I'm going to go back into our content structured view. I had mentioned that we want to talk about how we're creating our own content. Now, at the start of the session, I had mentioned that Paladin does in fact have its own program, one program, but it does have a program. And we decided to introduce some of the modules onto the platform. And this was a straightforward creation of a smart card whereby we upload our PDF learner guides and made this available to the candidates. Here you'll see the learner guide is hosted and is downloadable from the platform. All right, so the content creation, I'm sure that we will be hosting many more webinar series that take you through in-depth functionality around creating smart cards, creating pathways, creating journeys. It's a very quick and agile process. And ultimately, I was able to get my content up and running on this platform in less than an hour. So now that we've covered the different ways in which we've been curating content, let's turn to the biomastery view to talk about a different aspect of learning, which we integrated into this unified experience. Now, at the beginning of the session, I did mention the biomastery program, which has been core to our 3 months work readiness intervention. Now, biomastery, as mentioned, has its own LMS where the content is hosted. The structure of that LMS is such that the content is structured per lesson, and that is followed or broken up by knowledge quizzes and checks, whereby one achieves 100% before they can continue. But it did not include the links into the live virtual sessions, as well as any additional submissions or projects or assignments that we wanted to support that was bespoke. Now, we were using a standard version of the biomastery program, and then also leveraging in functionality that we have available on Future Skills. So for us, what became really important is the biomastery program has a tight schedule, and every week the candidates have to access on a Thursday a recording of a live session whereby they get introduced to new content, and thereafter will work through the learning materials independently. Every following Tuesday, they participate in a live group interactive session, which is a tutorial session, which is facilitated by Barbara, in which the candidates can unpack and deliberate the concepts in that lesson. So we created live events on the platform, and the reason why we did this is to make it easy for the candidates to access. But importantly, the candidates could register directly on Future Skills to acknowledge that they had actually found the link for the session. They could access the link to the session. We leveraged push notifications from the system to ensure that nobody missed out on their sessions. And of course, there is a functionality whereby you can download the meeting straight into the calendar, Outlook calendar. Okay, so this is an example of how we hosted is a light term, but how did we provide the access to the live links on the Future Skills platform? I'm going to take a shift further down to reflect on 2 modified components to the biomastery program. What we introduced were assignments, and in this case, we asked the students to provide a comprehensive reflection on their experience of the program across the first section of work. So we were able to, our operations manager, Tandeka, was able to create a smart card, which is a project submission. The candidates submit their reflections, and that's done via an upload or a share of the link. And straight away, we're able to download or retrieve via a link those submissions. This was fantastic for us because it allowed us to augment the learning activities and engagement beyond what we were using at a standard level with the different program providers. It also gives us visibility with content, assignments, submissions, whereby our team has access to that information, can review, can exchange, can interact, and it's not hosted separately on a different environment. Let's shoot across to Salesforce. This is a wonderful example of how we have curated in the content from the pre-program block. Now, the Salesforce training itself takes place on Trailhead. So our intention was not to replace Trailhead. Trailhead is a beautiful platform, incredible content that is freely available. But for us, what was really important was we had prescribed trail mixes that the candidates had to participate in for their pre-program block. But this was not supported or specifically curated into the specialized Pathfinder program. It was separate retrievable links. So again, how did we collect the learning links and structure that in an easily accessible, logical way for the candidates? And so this is exactly how we tackled pre-program. So you'll see, for example, we had pre-program week 1, Salesforce Basics 1, and when we open and launch, that takes us straight into Trailhead. And straight away, the candidates can access the relevant trail mix. And all of the content is hosted on Trailhead, and all of the learning progress is captured on Trailhead. Great. Next to Salesforce pre-program, similar to BioMastery, we had to support access to mentorship links or group mentorship sessions. So supporting pre-program, we had a series of group mentorship sessions facilitated by 2 wonderful young ladies, and exactly the same concepts. Instead of having links and pieces all over the place across Outlook and saved documents and messages, we decided to structure all of the session links straight into future skills. Number 1, it's easily accessible. Number 2, the system push notifications constantly reminded the candidates of their upcoming event. Number 3, the candidates could register for the event and acknowledge their receipt of invitation. And they could download the calendar invite directly to their Outlook. So we've taken you through a view of content that we have supported in terms of internally curated, internally created, externally curated and structured, as well as the link with virtual instructor-led training and how we supported that for our candidates. One final piece that I'm going to transition across to is the view of all of the learning assignments. And I'm going to take you top to bottom through a view of what we've managed to cover with the candidates in the past 3 months. And I think this is quite remarkable. If we take a look at the extent of content that we've covered, given that we launched the hub on the 1st of June, I would say that by the 20th of May, none of this existed. So it was really a week, a matter of days for things to start turning around. And this was an ongoing organic process. As soon as we identified new requirements or had any critical issues that we could deal with by introducing new content, new opportunity to practice and hone in skills, we would then structure and curate that into this group for the candidates. So this is a substantial amount of content that our candidates have been through. And at the moment, they're currently involved in a Pathfinder program, which is separately hosted on Trailhead. And a note, it's a huge and exciting milestone for us. It's a global initiative between Salesforce and Deloitte, and this is the official first-time implementation in South Africa. Before we close out and summarize on the objectives achieved and a reflection back on strengths, opportunities, as well as some of the challenges, let's take a quick view at a very exciting example. Now, one of our candidates was quite early on placed into a local business that provides logistic management services. We had to undergo systems training as a management team to become familiarized with the core technology that was used to drive the business's administrative processes. We had to undertake this training, and then we had to transfer this across to our candidate, where she was now going to be delivering these services. So I'm going to take you through this view of what we put together. And this took 1 day, less than 1 day. So here we created a new pathway. This is called Introduction to Logistics Management Administration Services. In this pathway, we created a job specification, so our candidate knew the scope of her work and exactly what this role entailed. The role entails the document processing and data capturing from weighbridge tickets, from the truck's journey from pickup to drop-off. And very importantly, the job revolves around leveraging a cloud-based platform called Maple, which is in fact a local platform developed by VKB. And it is this platform that is used to manage the end-to-end load management, data capturing, reconciliation, and the triggering for invoicing and payments. Now, you can imagine this is quite a daunting task to get a candidate ready to rumble within a matter of days. And also a lot of time and energy goes into learning new systems, platforms, and requirements and transferring that over to a beneficiary. We were able to do this in a matter of days, archive or create the content and codify that content within less than a day. And now this will become a part of our standard training processes as we scale up these administration support services. So I just want to open up one of our smart cards and just give you an example of how we used video content. There are two ways to filter out information when updating truck and load information once the process has been triggered. Right, so we created videos with supporting narratives and leveraged the smart card functionality itself to embed the instructions or the breakdown per task. So we don't have any offline training manuals. We didn't have to do any paper-based work. Everything was digitalized and has been saved on Future Skills. Now, before I wrap and move into a summary, we did mention privacy and front-end analytics. So let's talk about that and then we'll close out. So I think one of the biggest concerns as a content owner or a content provider or a organization is the privacy of what it is that you're doing, the privacy of how you're creating and designing. That in itself is a form of IP, and very importantly, private and sensitive information that is being hosted directly on the LXP. So I'm going to go back into our group view, and I'm going to talk through some basic privacy settings. First and foremost, all of our client groups are private, and the access is controlled through members. We've got 3 different levels of members. Let's take a look. We've got our users, which is referred to as a group member. We've got our general learners. which this is referred to as a group. Sorry, this is a general user as a group member, our admin. The admin has the right to make structural changes to a group. So all the configuration changes and updates, and then our group leaders. Okay, so we manage the group by management of the members. Typically, the Future Skills team does get involved as administrators and leaders in the early days to set up new groups and to support with structuring, configuration, and curation. But ultimately, the Future Skills team can assist, and then they can exit these groups. Then in the actual content which is created that is specific to a partner, that's your content or your IP. So in this example, prioritization is Paladin and IQ Business IP. So if I just open up, excuse me one moment, I just want to edit this card and show you the levels of restriction. So every time that a new piece of content is created, this is set as private piece of content, or it is marked off as public. Then you may set content which is private, and you might have the whole Future Skills team involved in your group. You still want them there because you need their support to manage your group, to administrate, to configure, but you don't want them to see your content. You can restrict the content even further down to specific users. So if I wanted to, I could restrict this all the way down to Tandeka alone. And I'm not going to do that now. Otherwise, that's going to close up my content to the rest of my group members. So I think this is one aspect that's really important to touch base on. Our Future Skills team does provide significant onboarding support. There are sensitive configuration points in smart cards, pathways, and journeys, as well as groups, to make sure that we're creating content correctly and marking it off correctly in terms of privacy without restricting it from our own beneficiaries and only restricting that from general public. Okay, so that's content privacy. Let's take a quick view of front-end analytics. For every single group, you've got a group analytics view, and this is a quick snapshot of what's happening within your group. So let's take a look. You can take a view of all of your new users. You can see 25 of our new users were added in the month of June, and our activity has been happening from June all the way through to date. If you want to take a view of a more detailed breakdown, you can click onto the graph and take a summary breakdown of the number of your active users within that month. So we can access new users, active users, average sessions, consumption of smart cards. This is quite interesting. We've had 28,263 smart cards that have been consumed, which is quite phenomenal. Contributions, how many smart cards have been created between myself, Tandeka, and the Future Skills team? 3,859 new smart cards have been created. And you'll see this is our engagement index, and that is the rate of engagement from start to progress to complete of content. Looking quite good. Assignment performance, where there is mandatory content, mandatory assignments. This can also be viewed directly from your front-end analytics. So you can see who this has been assigned to, how many people have completed this. So let's take a view. Once you break down or drill down into that data, you can take a view on who the assignee is. You can filter in terms of alphabetical up or down. You can filter by date as well as completion date. Now, none of these reports are currently downloadable, but this is quite easy to copy and paste directly into an Excel document. Fantastic. I am going to stop my screen share. And I'm going to go back into the summary of the objectives. So at the outset of the session, we had spoken about the need for the Dundee Digital Skills Hub to access high quality work readiness training. We had none. To close the gap with excluded youth, using localized, relatable content. We were able to fully achieve that. We wanted to access high quality upskilling content to support broader whole person development. We were able to cover a significant amount of additional content, from introduction to cybersecurity to understanding the basic concepts of data sciences, data visualization, so forth. We wanted to curate learning content for bespoke requirements. So as the need arose, we wanted to be able to quickly identify suitable content and pull that into the experience design. I took you through an example of the BBC podcasts and project card submissions. We wanted to create content quickly and efficiently. The case of the sign up of the new local business and getting one of our candidate resources ready in a matter of days was a wonderful example of how we were able to create our own content, brand new content, in less than a day, and then allow for the candidate to undergo upskilling in that new content in just a few days. We wanted to create a unified learning experience by structuring multiple training streams into one consolidated group environment. To date, we've been able to successfully support several content sources and types. We've gone through the internally curated content, the SA Youth Work Readiness Training. We've gone through the BPESA specific created training for continuous learning, transferable skills. We have demonstrated the content that is readily available from the NASCOM EdCast library. We've demonstrated how we're able to pull in learning from external platforms such as LinkedIn Learning, Microsoft Learning, Salesforce Trailhead. We've also demonstrated how we're able to structure in all of our virtually instructor-led training sessions. We wanted to access learning anytime, any place, so that the candidates could continuously learn and refresh on a self-managed basis. Our candidates were able to access the Future Skills platform via their desktop during the working hours, Mondays to Fridays, and after hours we're able to access the platform via their smartphones. They were also able to revisit any type of content. They were also able to explore any content available on Future Skills. We wanted to use the platform to pull in useful links and resources. I didn't take you through Movie Friday and how we would pull in useful links, such as a video on the Fourth Industrial Revolution within the South African context, and the assignment that we set for the candidates to do an analysis of our ERRP skills strategy. We wanted to stimulate peer competitiveness by leveraging the group leaderboard. The feedback was really fascinating, and it does seem that badges and points are really important. And we wanted to leverage learning assignments and push notifications to support the learning program plan and critical timelines. I would say we were very efficient in managing the candidates' time with very minimal issues in terms of delayed or overdue assignments and learning progress. So let's close out on strengths. The Future Skills platform for the Dundee Digital Skills Hub was a very powerful tool for curating and creating content within a few hours to a few days. It was highly collaborative, allowing the facilitation team to co-develop training on the go. It was extremely easy to use and stitch together different learning experiences. It had superb functionality to structure content into our learning group in order to meet our learning requirements. We were able to fully achieve our prescribed and exploratory learning requirements. And it also supported social sharing and influencing. This is our peer reviews and sharing and promoting of content. Some of the challenges that we did experience: how to set up smart cards, pathways, and journeys. If you're not fully in the know of how to manage the functionality, it can be a challenge to manage privacy correctly, to curate correctly, and that has an impact on learner visibility as well as their ability to complete and share content. So I'd say one of the biggest lessons learned for us is having a robust knowledge of how to create and curate the content independently. High-level reporting is accessible from the front end, but we did have some detailed reporting that we had to request from the Future Skills team. And this is available for hosted content only. So all of the third-party site content, we do not get the analytics. So that means we had to adjust our strategy in terms of what is core and formalized learning versus what is additive or additional learning, whereby we don't have to provide the progress evidence for auditing purposes. What are the opportunities? We were able to drive, the opportunities moving forward is that we want to drive more user-generated content. We want to get peers more involved in peer-to-peer learning and peer grading. This will also help our team scale up our model. We also want to leverage more functionality of the Future Skills platform. We want to use more of the medal assessment platform. We also want to embed more quizzes, surveys, and polls for better feedback loops. And we want to introduce live streaming for activities such as community impact projects. Great. So I'm going to take a pause and just say a huge thank you to you all for joining us today and a review of the Dundee Digital Skills Hub case study. If there are any questions, we've got about 2 minutes to go. Please feel free to pop a question into the chat or come off of mic. We'd love to address any questions or comments you may have.
Hi. Coral, I'll grab a lot. Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'll just be 2 seconds. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much, Carl. That was really, really informative. I might just say at the outset, as much as it's wonderful to see that back end because it gives us ideas of how to further our relationship, for us, it's always the hand that manages the technology. So that's very liberating. So these technologies are wonderful, but at the end of the day, it's the team that is implementing them, using them, optimizing their efficiency. And I think what was really exciting about Biomastery working with Paladin on this project is that it allowed us to understand the scope and scale of where we can go as content creators. I'm head of applied research and training. Our area of expertise should not be our energy efficiency should not be in something like technology. And I think the interesting step we're taking is where traditionally universities, colleges, concrete and brick-based buildings were where we curated data into curriculums. What you're taking on is the digital version of that. Definitely in the vocational space, the agility to be able to put together a curriculum that is relevant, appropriate, and bespoke for certain target audiences is superb. And creating partnerships in which this shared value creation takes place, where we all plug in to deliver in a particular area, is superb. Hence, us taking the next step with you on Biomastery for children. We were anticipating that we were going to leverage it out in one of our white papers, an urban-based school, and literally within one conversation, you steer the juggernaut of a ship in a completely different direction for people from Denmark, Dubai, all over to say, why don't we pick up 5 schools in KwaZulu-Natal? Here's the infrastructure we can deliver, not only the technology, but the ecosystem, the business ecosystem of Paladin and Biomastery to leverage out at top speed requirements in various spaces, but specifically, obviously, education. And for me, what is so exciting, areas that were normally not targeted as deliverables from accessibility point of view and so on. So thank you very, very much. That was a speed talk to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That's some really wonderful food for thought. And I just want to thank you. You've been an incredible partner to the Dundee Digital Skills Hub and to Paladin. And for anybody who's interested, we've got some feedback on LinkedIn, candidate reviews of Biomastery program. I think that we're at time and we're going to greet everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you, Coral. Goodbye.